Hello, everybody, and welcome to SoulFire Fridays. My name is Webby, the founder of SoulFire Inspiration, and this is where we get to extend the week's conversation that typically began on Monday with me sending out an email to subscribers and then continues with a SoulFire Fridays video, which is shared on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. This month, we've been talking about finishing strong, and I'd like to begin today's video with a question. Do you remember how you got into 2019? The promise that you kind of were riding on, the things that you were convinced were going to happen. It's your year for increase. Yeah. It's your year for breakthrough. Yeah. This year you're going to do some new things. You're going to break new ground and enter uncharted land. Yeah. And then, now we're in December, we're getting to the end of the year, and it kind of hasn't happened the way you thought it would. Well, today that's what we want to talk about, facing disappointments. With the promise of every new year, there are some disappointments that you will have to deal with. Some things are not going to work out the way you thought they would or the way you expected them to. And before you go into a new year, it's very important to acknowledge the disappointments and process right through them, so that when you get into the new year, you get into the new year on a fresh slate. I like to think of it this way. You have two choices. You either learn from and adjust out of the disappointments that you've experienced in the year 2019 specifically, or you kind of just sweep it under the rug and become jaded, and over time you begin to think that there's no point in hoping, there's no point in thinking positively about every year that you get the opportunity to turn into, because, well, after all, things don't exactly work out the way that you hoped they would. And some of those disappointments are not just necessarily out of things that didn't exactly happen or things that didn't go the way that you wanted them to. Some of those disappointments actually are from people who hurt you, people who disappointed you or let you down in some way. It's important to recognize that even you could have let people down. So there's a possibility that you might be the source of somebody else's disappointment. And it is important that if you recognize this, if you happen to know that you've let someone down or you've disappointed people in one way or another, that you go to make it right. But we're looking at the disappointment that you've carried throughout the year, where things haven't worked out and things haven't gone the way you expected. I just want to say a very simple thing today. It's important to process your disappointment, but first, the way to do that is to acknowledge that you are disappointed. Don't pretend that you don't feel bad or you don't feel let down, or it ain't nothing. You can just, let's do this again next year. The truth is, you can't exactly cheat yourself. You cannot pretend that you don't feel the way you do, because you're a human being, and at the end of the day, as a human being, you have emotions that need to be processed for you to be able to have a healthy emotional life, or a healthy life anyway. Because even the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. Whatever is in the heart is what comes out. And if all you feel and all you're carrying in your heart is disappointment and perhaps anger or unforgiveness or any of those negative things, then what you're really doing is stacking up your stash of poison, which is going to eventually infect every positive thing that's possibly going to happen in the year that's coming ahead. So if you have disappointments that you've registered throughout this year, things that didn't work out, things that didn't go the way you expected, people who hurt you, it's very important for you to acknowledge those. And then it's very important also to perhaps recognize that maybe your expectations or the time within which those things are going to happen was different from how you would have expected it to happen. Or let me put it this way. Perhaps your expectations need adjusting. Perhaps it's that you need to allow more time for whatever it was you were hoping for to happen. Or perhaps you actually just need to take on a different approach so that you can accomplish whatever it was you set out to do in the beginning of this year, so that now in 2020, you have a much better chance of accomplishing your goal. In some cases, it's really about doing all three. Adjusting your expectations, be more realistic. Give a little bit more time for whatever hasn't happened to happen, because some things may not necessarily happen within a year, which is why last week we were even talking about vision boards. And take on a different approach. It always helps to take on a different approach, because then at least you're doing things in a different way, and hopefully that will bring you a little bit closer to a different result, a different outcome. And so I hope that this helps you, and I hope it encourages you, and I hope that this brings you a lot closer to starting the new year that's coming up with a positive outlook and with hope, and that you're not going to be infected by the disappointments of 2019. I look forward to continuing this conversation next week. We shall be wrapping up this conversation, and I wish you a Merry Christmas, because the next time you're going to be watching my videos is right after your Christmas break. So until then, see you then. God bless.